Hey, it's been a while, and I've got a great episode for you today. Back in April, I had the pleasure of chatting with Brendan Bradley about metaverse based performances. And I want to paint a scenario for you to help kick off today's episode. See, let's say you and your friends want to go to a metaverse based play. Well, first, you got to know which venue the play is happening in. Second, you probably have to download the same app. And third, unfortunately, you might need the same headset or headset manufacturer. See, this is normal for folks who have become used to the Xbox versus PlayStation, PC versus Mac, iPhone versus Android world that we live in today. And unfortunately, many experiences are dependent upon you choosing the same side of the fence. Well, I want you to know that there's an alternative. WebXR actually allows you to experience web-based metaverse experiences with your friends on almost any device. So your friends don't need the same headset manufacturer, and in many cases, don't even need a headset at all. WebXR allows folks to participate from almost any phone, tablet, or PC. This means that you can broadly open up who's able to come see your performance and who you can invite to attend with you. Well, I enjoyed this conversation with Brendan, and I hope that you will too. It's the Metaverse Interop Show. How was that?
Crazy. Afraid? Are you Mr. Jackson? No.
What does that mean?
When you rub noses.
All right.
Together?
Brendan, thank you so much for joining me today on my show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think you were intended to be like the first guest originally.
You teased me out hard on Twitter. You were like, I freaked out. I was like, oh man, like when's the interview coming out? I don't remember this one.
Yeah, you're stuck. You were like the first, you were supposed to be the first guest. I remember I was doing something with XR Showcase and I saw that you had submitted. That was just a perfect timing. And I admittedly just knew absolutely nothing about video editing. And so it was like such a hurdle, and I was like, I recorded again and again and again. And that is actually how I got my start for the show, was trying to record the episode about you. So I'm glad we're finally doing it.
Nice.
Go ahead and sit down. So, all right, this is the Metaverse Interop Show. You are, kind of revolutionizing, pioneering what I love. The one quote about you is just like potentially the future of entertainment. No pressure, right? But I think your work is fascinating, and I really do think it's an exemplar of kind of the future. So let's start out if you want to do like a little intro about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Sure. Well, I feel like I would want to know what you think my intro is, because that tells me what's working and what isn't.
Well, let's see. I know you have tremendous experience in creating content, building followings. And the part that I've been most interested in about your recent work is the concept of musical theater, metaverse performances. So metaverse theater, musical theater in the metaverse. And from my understanding, it seems like some of the work that you do, the people viewing and watching can help influence potentially, or maybe in the future. And I also love your use of avatars. You're kind of like a walking exemplar for everything I love about the metaverse. So again, no pressure. How'd I do?
This is great. This is great feedback. I love what you identified in my kind of swamp of things. I'm Brendan Bradley. I'm an actor. I call myself a scrappy storyteller, even though I probably shouldn't, because that infers that everything has rough edges and is breaking in real time, which is often true in VR development, but doesn't always have to be true. But specifically, I've worked in film and television and live theater for over 2 decades, and I've been a part of over 100 film and television projects, and especially early YouTube culture was my gateway into kind of on-camera work, which of course, the interaction of a responsive interactive with baby I and baby R being able to have that feedback loop, art is always a dialogue with your audience, but to have that be in sort of real time or close to real time in the way that it was on stage, but with filmed or media content, led me down the rabbit hole of more and more dynamic experiences, which led to volumetric video and 360 and all sorts of different motion capture performances, which led me into like video game work. And during the shutdown, I was in the middle of editing my second feature film that I directed. That was about a VR startup company, and it's an adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth, told through the lens of like a Telltale Games like failed video game, like that has huge success, meteoric, and then overnight collapses, and everyone wants to know what happened. And so I basically used the conceit of the in-game world and avatars being our three witches that predict the future of the company and the game, to Mac, who is our very aloof idiot. The project is called The Tale Told by an Idiot. And then there's a programmer, Beth, who sees this whole influx of the game and of angel investment as her way to kind of escape the like toxic bro startup culture. And so she then like manipulates everyone in the way that Lady Macbeth frequently does. And I was in the middle of, I've learned Unity. I was teaching myself a 3D pipeline to kind of animate these sequences of the film. I captured my actors using an Xbox camera on set. And through doing all of that during the pandemic, I was like, I really want to get back to like live theater. Can this be done in real time? How can we actually like be truly responding with the audiences? And that led me to basically going down every possible rabbit hole for avatar performance, particularly in web-based VR, because that's device agnostic and you don't have to download anything. And it is the true promise of the interoperable metaverse as far as being able to deliver a content experience, a fairly optimized content experience to any audience member at their level of access or at their level of device. Because I think what's most exciting is when people talk about the killer app for the metaverse.
Yeah.
I think what we're overlooking is the socialized nature. The idea that we have all of the community aspect and the interaction and the conversation of social media, but through the intention and the playableness of video game content or interactive content or gamified content, but then also through a ritual of intention that we see in a lot more kind of structured community organization online. Reddit's a great example, or any kind of forum or wikia, a community that is self-defined and therefore has intention. Because I think the biggest hiccup for me and the heartbreak for me of watching the socialized spaces in VR has been it gets overrun by kind of the loudest person in the street corner. And you can feel very quickly antagonized, attacked. There is a lot of predatory behavior out there. It's terrible. And so a lot of people's first introduction to the metaverse and to the technology is basically being assaulted by a 13-year-old. And that's not fun for anybody. Like I don't want to babysit somebody else's kids. And if I start associating that with the medium, I think that that is one of our biggest stumbling blocks for the medium. And so the beauty of couching a lot of this in live performance and live events is the ritual and the organic onboarding we already bring to live events. We spawn outside of a venue or we drive there. We go to the box office to check in for our ticket or, kind of let us know how our access point is going to be, ask any questions. We guide ourselves through an atrium that gives us information about the show, good house management, guides us to our seat. We choose where we want to sit and how we experience the performance, which to me is the most important part, because just because it is interactive doesn't mean everybody wants to interact. There's a large swath of audience that wants to sit in the dark, observe, maybe literally be a fly on the wall and be able to like fly up into the actor's face and watch the experience from the best seat in the house, but not be called upon, not become the content. But for those participants that do truly want to play the experience, they can go pick me, and they can become a part of the adventure. They can literally have agency through the story. And what I love about all of this is that we run a seasonal showcase and incubator called webXR. We've been doing it for almost 3 years now. We've produced over 35 world premieres. We've monetized the work of over 50 artists and put money in their pockets for their first prototype in VR. And 30% of our audience, when we do surveys, reports that this was their first experience in VR or live VR.
Wow.
Which means
Pulling
we're
them in.
giving this opportunity for people's first experience with the metaverse to be something with true agency, that they got to opt in or opt out, and also that they weren't being assaulted by a child. Like, they were
Yeah.
just getting to go see a piece of art from an artist and intersect and interact with that on their terms. And if
Yeah.
that's people's first association with the work, I think that we can see far greater results, far greater community, and far greater investment in the experience.
Absolutely. I love the intentionality in your approach. Like, just you're thinking about the long-term effects of your work. You're not just recklessly building. I think I definitely identify with that. I've always kind of felt like, I guess I'm regularly bad cop. I always have to like push back. I'm a product manager. I'm serving as an interim COO right now. Like, I'm always the guy who has to be like, hey guys, let's think about this other stuff, you know? So
Right.
I guess that's just in my nature, but I definitely found myself not subscribing to the concept of just build bro, that
Mhm.
like that whole adage, because it's rather irresponsible when you're building entire economic systems, especially in the Web3 culture, to be building something that's an economic layer of sorts under the guise of just build bro. You know, we do have to be mindful of the user experience and also of the social and equitable, I guess, repercussions, right, of our work. And your work is no exception. So that's fantastic. Let's see. I have some questions for you. I mean, like, I have a lot of questions for you. I know we only have so much time, but what's different? Like, does it feel the same? Does it feel different? Does a performance for you in VR or in XR, especially web-based XR, does it feel as it does for you in the flesh, or would you say there's some key differences?
I would say that in my technological journey of getting further and further and further away from the stage, right, from film and television to video games to incorporating a digital system, even live streaming, even what we're doing right now, right? This has all been a slow migration of taking the craft of thousand-year-old stagecraft and live performance, and using your physical instrument as a technical instrument to communicate story. This is the first time that I feel like it has looped back, in the sense that because I am in a shared environment embodied with my audience in real time, they are inherently co-creating. We are inherently aware of each other. It is like being back on stage again. You know, when you look in the eyes of an avatar, that's a human. There's a human on the other side of that. And that's incredible. So often we're so familiar with the language of cinematography, of knowing that I can look through this camera and there's a human watching on the other side of that camera. But to know that there is someone embodying the eyeballs that I am looking into, um, I mean, it's Shakespeare. It goes back to, the Greeks. Like, it is this holding on a stage and gesturing out to the masses to
Yeah.
communicate a catharsis and share a storytelling tradition. And so for me, it isn't the same. It is just the closest that a digital system has not interfered with my real-time connection with a live audience.
Mhm.
And to that end, I think what it does differently, and I'm not skilled enough to even fully communicate this yet because I'm still grappling with it. It is the largest high that I've ever had performing live. And it is the hardest crash that
Right.
I've ever had coming down from it, because I think effectively what I'm doing, and some have called it triple presence, is that I have to be simultaneously occupying 3 different experiences. I'm having my physical performance, whether that's in my living room or on a stage. I'm then inside of a VR world that may or may not be mapped to that virtual world. So I may need to be coordinating, on one hand, my rotation to be able to walk or dance or move through a space without colliding into a wall, that's there in physical world that isn't there in virtual world. Or inversely, I might be able to walk somewhere, but I would walk through a wall in virtual world, thus breaking the illusion that this is a true shared space or a collidable space. And that third presence is then actually stitching it together, because I think what this work most adequately represents is digital puppetry. And when we watch puppetry, we want to see the performer manipulating that puppet. That's part of the experience. So it isn't about fully fooling the audience. Ken Bai talks about the liveness of live and why does it matter? Like, why? Who cares? Why couldn't this just be pre-recorded? And I think that when it becomes too dependent on the animation system, then this could just be much more compellingly told in a pre-recorded animation. We know we have an immense vocabulary for what animated content looks like and feels like, and the scope that is possible, or cutscenes in a video game. We know how enjoyable that medium is, but the responsive nature of the animation that can truly talk back to you, or respond to you, or walk with you, or chase you, or follow you where you want to go in the story, holding space for that and letting them know there's a performer on the other side of it is, I mean, it's in the name, it's meta, it's metaverse. It's this idea that a storyverse can simultaneously be self-aware of the narrative performance and the fact that this is a performance that is being crafted and puppeted for you in real time. And that excitement for me, in a way, I know what it is for me to love theater and for me to love the creation of story live. I fell in love with that when I was a teenager. It is that theater bug, that drug that people talk about. You're getting to watch and facilitate and mediate the audience falling in love with theater through that story and infect them with the bug for the first time. And that handoff is infectious. I mean, it's almost most similar to like talk radio, where a caller can call in and basically become a part of the show. But you still know the host is puppeting the experience, keeping us in good hands, ready to hang up if it goes awry, steering us back on course. And it's that handshake between a skilled performer that loves the craft and is puppeting for us, and an audience that is getting trusted to take over the story in strategic ways, that I think I don't know that I've ever experienced anything like that in any other medium. And I think it is the true promise of working in VR, especially live.
It's so, I mean, it makes me think of, I may have told this story before on the show, but it's such a simple aspect of metaverse and identity. I have a friend, Matthew. I meet with Matthew probably once a week, almost every week for a year and a half at least. He lives in London, and so we meet early before my workday begins, and we explore different virtual worlds. Sometimes we just catch up on our startups. He's running a business too, and but there was a moment where we went and decided to explore VR chat together. And, I didn't really care what my avatar was at the time, because I couldn't get mine in there yet. So I was like, all right, I'll grab one that looks good. I don't know if he ever changed his avatar. I really don't. He was the banana with the sunglasses that you see.
Yes.
And I just remember, it's so simple. I remember he invited me to a world. I drop into a portal and I see him, and we're on this aircraft carrier. And he's looking for me, and I see him at the other end of the aircraft carrier, and I see his arm go, and he starts waving, and then he starts running, and there's this banana running, and its head's back. He's running to me, and I'm running to him, and as soon as I get there, it was just like, hey, bud. And he's like, hey, bro, how you doing? Like this banana running full speed, and it felt real. It wasn't like, I wasn't like, ha, 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 you're a banana. That was Matthew, so I get what you mean when it's like you look in the eyes, there's a being there. There's a book I referenced once before on the show. I'll reference it as often as I can. It's called Glitch Feminism. It's by Legacy Russell, and it's really more of a manifesto, but it goes into this concept of the race, gender, orientation, all of these things that we ask in these boxes that we check on paper here in the physical world, but how that translates into the metaverse and how that translates into the virtual world. And the question that they ask that really changed my life was, we call this the real world. Sure, I'm not going to win this battle with most people, but legacy challenges us to stop calling this the real world, because it suggests that those who feel comfortable, feel most like themselves in a virtual world, or playing a video game, or being a banana, it suggests that their experience is less authentic and not real. And just shook my foundation. And I read the book. I have an audiobook too. I recommend it to everybody. It's really small, but it talks about that, like the intimate, the true, getting back to the real nature, that primal nature of experience and of relationship, and how we interact and feed off each other. Yeah, definitely resonates with me. If somebody was like starting out, right? Let's say they've been acting for a while, maybe they've been acting their whole life, as long as they can remember, and they want to get into doing web-based VR performances. What advice would you have for them?
I would say that I have built alongside others an entire community for you that you can join. And basically, I started with launching the Future Stages, which is just a free virtual playhouse that you can customize within literally a couple minutes through some tutorials I have online, to be able to put your work in a swappable theater. So if you don't want to go on a proscenium stage, you toggle a switch and now you're in a black box. Pretty incredible. And it's the world's cheapest theater, because renting it is literally just creating your own instance of it and taking it over, which is great. So that's the Future Stages that I launched in the middle of the shutdown. It was great. But Onboard XR is a community that grew out of that work to specifically stage first-time performances and first-time prototypes. So we're on our 6th seasonal cycle right now. We have 6 new original pieces being developed by creators all over the world. It's an open application. It's free. It's basically all volunteer driven. Whoever wants to show up is invited, and you stand up your first little short sliver of a project. And the idea is, if you've ever been to a one-act play festival or a short film block at a festival, where it's just completely not connected, cabaret style, we throw to, and now let's go to London with Avon, and he's going to take over the stage for a moment. Lights are going to go to black. We're going to go into his world. Lights will come up, and now he takes over the show for 5 to 8 minutes. Lights go down. Now we go to Sarah in, France. And we just dance around the world, handing off the show to different performers who have created their first little short experience. And it's usually about an hour-long presentation to get a sampling of about 6 to 8 different prototypes.
That's fantastic. It's like a hackathon in many ways too. Like, building that community is huge. That's what Angel was originally founded on. Originally I thought I was building the metaverse. I was very much like, I'm going to show you. I quit college. I shut down my startup. The girlfriend I had left me. It was a tough time, but I was like, I'm going to show all of you. I'm going to build the metaverse. And, obviously I was very early, and I had to learn some tough lessons. Like, some folks are only now learning that others are going to have this idea too. And what was my saving grace, what's been the most beautiful part of this whole journey for me, is the community aspect, learning together, growing together. It kind of makes me think, actually, I wanted to show you. I don't know if you've seen, let's see if I can share my screen. Here we go. Share screen, entire screen. There we go. All right. This is the podcast studio from M3. Have you ever seen it?
I think I've seen a picture of it.
I am.
Yeah, you're
sharing it. Cool. Yeah. Check us out. So it's like my favorite metaverse space right now to show people. They have a green screen in the virtual world, and the green screen works like a green screen. Like, you would know. Yeah. You definitely know. I love this. It's my favorite. So I can come here and sit down if I want to. And they rigged all these cameras. And so while we can just be talking and go back, and I can say something funny and back. Just, you can bring your own avatar. It did make me think of you, and so I'm curious, how would you say? Let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. Give me a second. Goodness. Oh, did I freeze?
See, we're breaking it in real time.
There it is. I almost froze.
We did it.
So, my question, how do you balance, I guess, the technical, right? The technical requirements of creating a VR performance with the artistic direction, storytelling elements, not lose the soul along the way?
Sure. I mean, I think that it always starts with story. It always has. And I think that, again, what I find so elegant about theater or the live performing arts as a gateway to a lot of this work is we've performed theater and dance and comedy at the black box level, like just a black cube that becomes the story. I mean, we're talking about a medium where a scarf can become a character, that just by putting on a scarf, I am now a different character. We accept this. And now I'm telling a new component of the story. And that ritual that the audience is already primed for, already invested in, allows for much faster prototyping. It allows at a truly kind of paper prototype level, you can just enter a space like we were just in, drop in some random props from Sketchfab, and immediately start iterating in a way that is no different than a dollhouse or is no different than a piece of avant-garde work that you've seen a million times. And it then just becomes that conversation of money, really, resources, time, technical direction, scenic design, right? I've seen Romeo and Juliet done with a chair, and I've seen Romeo and Juliet done at the Globe with a theater that was basically built for Shakespearean performance. And we've seen Baz Luhrmann do it on film with like $1 million cinema budget. So it then becomes a conversation of creatively where you'd like to take the story. And that will always be the artist's dilemma of fighting your taste with your ability, of slowly getting better at 3D modeling to match the scenic design that you want to bring to life, or hiring a scenic designer, of finding the right avatar costume design that really represents that character. And the fun fact that you can change between them, of learning microphone techniques so that you can change voices between multiple characters or different scenes, or use the spatialized audio so that you can enter from behind the audience, right? And kind of approach them from the wing that they've never really been able to utilize before. I think all that becomes about just really standing up where you are and entering the experience. What's also really delicious about the theater community is that we already have, since then, really the 1960s, at least in America, a thriving immersive theater scene from the storefront movement of taking over non-traditional spaces for storytelling purposes. And so I think what's so fun is it's inherent in the medium, in the art form, and in the history that we would take over a video game system, a non-traditional space, to tell these stories. So of course, that's what we're doing. So I think as far as like how to get started, it's to show up and to do everything that you can do without the technology. We've had actors perform stories without any VR equipment, just at their keyboards with nuanced mouse movements and keyboard movements to like puppet their avatar in a compelling way, and then drop in, static images behind them to represent different backdrops, almost like a shower curtain effect. So again, all of this is on the table. And when we look at something that is as diverse as street performance to opera to dance to Broadway, I think that there's room for everybody and that there's no actual technical limitation. It then becomes the scaffolding upon which you want to add technical elevation to your story.
I love that. It's really about focusing on the why or the value proposition, right? Before getting too crazy, but also having fun, learning, experimenting, growing. You keep saying the word iteration. I mean, it's my life and the life of a creator is very much so, right? Based on that. All right. With that in mind, then, this will be my last question. And it relates to vision. Yeah, I know time is flying. With regard to the vision, and I would actually like to do a performance too, if we can sometime. Like, I'd love to set that up too. Or I can attend one and include it. So with regard to the vision, where do you see this going? What's 10X look like? What's the future of this?
I mean, the future of this can't be prescriptive by nature. I think that's the most frustrating part, is that you kind of have to respond to what the community wants, even if you don't always agree. I think we've seen the hype cycle of metaverse technology over the last 18 months. It got very quickly tethered to the monetization layer of NFTs or crypto, which to me was a conflating of two technologies that I didn't inherently agree with, but it's where a lot of funding and a lot of attention went. And so you had to then respond to that and support that that's where creators wanted to monetize their work. And then the bubble bursting on that did affect people's opinion or interpretation of metaversal technologies in some ways. And so I think that in some ways we can't prescribe where it's going. But what we do know is that when we look at any other technology, it has eroded the barriers between creator and consumer. And we see a lot more creator/consumers come out of the woodwork, and more people begin incorporating these technologies into their workflow. I mean, I like to say that in 2001, I made my first website and I got made fun of because casting directors, producers in theater and film said, "What do you need a website for? You're just an actor and not a famous actor. So what do you?" And now, of course, all these casting directors have like 3 websites, like one for their coaching business, one for their casting business, right? Like it's now become a ubiquitous technology that everybody has built a layer on top of. Yeah. And I think that there is no question to me that there will be a 3D extension to the 2D web. There will be an embodied entry point for whether it's shopping, whether it's events, whether it's meetups, like whether it's work and collaboration. There will be 3D extensions to the 2D web in the same way that we saw a socialization layer and a dynamic content layer get added to everything on the internet with social media and Web 2. So to me, there's no question that Web 3 is going to become some sort of extension and interoperability. And how does your activity across those dynamic experiences follow you to other sites and contents and experiences? Yeah. And so for me, what it is, it goes back to that original observation and mission of if people's first entry point to this work is being antagonized by a 13-year-old, it's going to cripple the whole industry. It's going to frustrate the whole industry. If your very first experience with social media was getting into a Twitter rant with a stranger, you're not going to love social media very much. Yeah. But if your first experience or early experiences with social media was finding your tribe and finding your community and being able to suddenly have access to a democratization of information, a democratization of content, of being able to fall in and follow tastemakers that speak to you, that see you, that get you, that know you, and you feel seen and heard and represented and invited to be a part of community, then I think that that's where we see 30 million social media platforms pop up that are competing with each other and creating the necessary economy and ecosystem that leads to, over time, the most good. And I think that that is going to be true for the metaverse as well. If one person wants to own it, hypothetically unnamed, but if one person wants to control and own the 3D embodiment of virtual experience, then I don't think we're going to see the type of growth and innovation and ownership that we need a creator economy and a consumer economy to take hold of. And so for me, I think that entry point is events. And I'm just trying to build as much scaffolding for when people want to show up and start attending those events and start making their own events.
Yeah, well said. And for anybody who's listening or watching this, you have a place in the metaverse. We want you to join our tribes or encourage you to build your own tribe. We need you. Exactly. We all get better by your participation. Brendan, I'm glad that you're in my tribe. I consider you in my tribe, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. You're a perfect exemplar, and it's so fun to show people your work and to say, look at this. I'd love to, like I said, do a follow-up piece, maybe attend a performance. But I'm just so grateful for everything that you've been doing. And how do people get in touch and follow you?
Sure. My little, where is it? Here?
Right there.
That's my name everywhere, literally everywhere on every platform. If it's there, if you find me there, that is me on that platform.
Fantastic.
So come find me there. You can check out Non-Player Character, which is a full immersive musical inside of virtual reality that you can attend at keyboard or in headset or on stage. I actually have 4 audience members come on stage with me and co-create the story. You can check out On Board XR. We're in our 6th season right now to bring new performances to life. And come invite me to be an actor in your thing. I can do voices, I can do faces, I can do bodies.
Deal. Somebody asked me over the weekend, I was checking out, I went to a breakfast place, I was checking out, and the person that was checking me out, she said, sing me a song. And I said, excuse me? I said, would love to, I'm a terrible singer. And she said, you look like you're gonna sing me a song. I said, I can't really sing, but I'll make up for it with volume and enthusiasm. And she said, that'll work. So I appreciate any help I can get. At very least, I will be loud and I will be enthusiastic. Brendan, I hope you have a great day. I will be in touch, and thanks so much for coming on the show, being the best part of the metaverse. Cheers.
Thank you.
See ya. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Brendan Bradley and encourage you to check out some of his webXR based performances. I've got some more content coming your way over these next few weeks. There's been some great advancements in Metaverse interoperability with some solid exemplars that I can show off. We'll probably get hands-on with some Metaverse home spaces pretty soon. And as always, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. I'll see you soon. It's the Metaverse Interop Show. How was that?